in this episode of the Wardrobe Within podcast.
We have all these tools at our disposal that we've been blessed with, and color is one of them. And color is a magnificent one. Color is one of those things that reaches across all bridges, sociological, economic, anything. It is something you don't have to speak the language. You get it.
Welcome to the Wardrobe Within, a show for those looking for a more soulful approach to style. I am so incredibly happy to welcome back today's guest, David Kibbe. David is an internationally renowned beauty and style consultant. He has several decades of work under his belt and tens of thousands of very happy clients. And we spoke on the last episode about the power of style. And this week, I'm so excited to talk to you, David, about the power of color.
Color. Yes.
Yes.
Color is magic. I mean, color is joy. I think everyone listening to this, take a moment and just think, what is the first thing that comes to you, to your feeling, when you bring up that word color? Just think for a moment. Because for me, it's joy. It's joy. It's magic. It's life. Color, imagine the world in black and white. And wow, that is really a stark image. But we take it for granted, and we shouldn't, because it's so delicious. It's visceral. You know, the whole thing about color is we don't intellectualize it because it's visceral. Color really is light, you know. I always like to start talking about color by telling everyone to try to put aside all your preconceptions and all your current fascinations and ideas of color for a minute, because there's so much going on online, and color analysis is back once again. It comes through these cycles. I've seen many of them come and go, and it's in a big one now. So put aside that for now. Let's just talk about what color is before we get to any of that. Because what color actually is light. It's not finite. We shouldn't really think of how we see color, because no two people see color alike. We should really replace that idea with how we perceive color. Technically, what happens? Light reflects off the back of the retina of the eye and moves through all these little cones that we have in our eyeballs, millions of them, and all these different shapes and sizes. And no two human beings have the same. They're not even the same in both of our eyes. So that's how we process color. Now, we think of color as, a sweater or makeup or hair color or something like that. But it isn't really that. It's our perception of that you want to really understand. So the first and most important thing to think about is no two people see color alike. No two people perceive color. But when we talk about perception, I think that helps us understand that as an individual thing. And it's so important to understand because, you know, the problem with the way color gets presented to the world, especially in techniques, whatever version they are, is they get very intellectual. They get very sort of left brain like lists of you wear this, you don't wear this version. And all of that can be helpful, but not if you start with that. You have to start with color as energy, just like everything else. But very specifically, it is light. And you think of light moves. I mean, we talk about light speed. That's the fastest thing there is. And that is color. That is exactly how we want to start thinking about it, because then it opens it up to a whole new world. And that's why I think it's so visceral, because we experience color. We really do.
I agree.
You know,
I agree so much. And
go ahead.
I loved your question about what is the first thing you think about when you think of color? Because I love, magic, joy. For me, it's art.
I knew it.
Because
I knew it. I knew that you would say that. And I love them so much. Yeah.
But it's so true, like what you're saying, right? I mean, color is light, and color is the interplay of light and dark. and of the way that we're perceiving color. And that's why I love to think of color as art, because when we look at color in terms of a head to toe for an
Mhm,
outfit, art is very similar in that there is so much that goes into the interplay
mhm,
of the color
mhm,
contrast, the value
mhm.
contrasts, all of the different hues and colors that are going together to create this cohesive
Mhm,
masterpiece.
mhm,
And that for me is how I love to see color in relation to your clothing,
mhm.
because you are painting your own
That's
masterpiece with
exactly
that
right.
beautiful palette that you
That is
have.
exactly right. And the thing that I want to stress, go back to the origins of the artist that created the piece you're talking about. We're talking about, let's say, painting right now. Okay, he was trying to communicate something. So color is a
Mhm.
tool in doing that. It's not about the color, it's about using the power of color to make his statement, whether it be the beauty of a fabric, like in paintings, like in the Renaissance. So much of that was to differentiate the classes of people. If someone, I think, I can't help think of her when I think of this. For anybody who hasn't heard of Sister Wendy, do you know Sister Wendy?
No, I do
Oh,
not.
oh, you will. Oh, I just hit the light. You will love her. I got too excited. You will love her. Sister Wendy. All right. She passed away last year. She is wait, I'm fixing this. Oh my God. I almost kicked the whole thing over. I got too excited. Oh, you will
I know, I get
love
so
her.
excited
And
too.
everybody listening, please go look her up. You can find her on YouTube. She was a nun who, I guess she passed away in her 90s or something. She lived in solace for many, many years and lived in a trailer outside of her convent. But she's an art expert, and she takes you through all of the different all the different eras of painting. Her series is called The Story
Mhm.
of Painting. They're magnificent, and she's so funny, and she is irreverent, and she likes to talk about the bawdiness of things. But where I got this from her, this is the reason that I brought this up. Like the artists in the Renaissance, when they're talking about these beautiful folds of satin and velvet that they capture, they're used to make a statement about the class, the distinction, and there are nuances involved about someone who is nouveau, someone who is on their way out. And when we're talking about a woman's position, they're very specific about how she is cloistered. And there's so many things. So my point about is that it's not just about making beautiful colors. There's a reason for that. And that's the power of color because, see, we have all these tools at our disposal that we've been blessed with, and color is one of them. And color is a magnificent one. I mean, it's straight from heaven. Um, that are here for us as human beings on earth to make our lives more fulfilling, to raise consciousness, to spread love to everyone. Nothing spreads love more than color. I mean, and that's why when we get into clothes, when you have someone in magnificent colors, and this has nothing to do with, I'm not talking about seasons or anything like that. It just makes people smile. I mean, Susan, my wife, if you don't know, which most of you probably do, has the most gorgeous outfits and color combinations. And to watch people respond, and they verbally respond and come up to us, but just the ones they take it in, the way they take it in. And, as children, when we come to this planet, we're very attuned to that. Like in my book, The Power of Style, if you don't know what we're talking about, um, I use the example of I love watching little girls, especially around the age of 6, 5, or 6, when they see Susan in her outfit, stop. And they give her like the once over, they're like, up. And some of them smile and some of them have a little judgment, but you see it, you see them stop in their tracks and you see it go into their mind and how it touches them and how it reaches all people. I mean, color is one of those things that reaches across all bridges, sociological, sexual, gender, economic, anything. It is something where you don't have to speak the language. You get it. Like, we're in our country, we're very far removed from the African whole sensibility of art and style. I mean, we're exposed to it now, but it is intrinsic to their continent. But when you see the way they use colors, that reaches us. I get that. I don't know enough,
Yes,
I'm ashamed to say, about the stories behind it, but I get it. And you get it. And, that's when you look at the paintings and you're talking about, you get it. You don't need words. You really don't.
you don't. Absolutely. And that is where the power of color comes from in what we're talking about. It is such an incredible tool for
Yep.
communicating the energy that you are bringing into the world.
Exactly.
But in order to be able to do that in an effective way, you have to understand color and understand the technique
Yeah.
in using
Yeah.
color. So can you walk us through, David,
Sure.
the foundations
Sure.
of seasonal color
Okay.
in the four
Well,
season
look,
system that you
yeah.
use and how to use it?
I always start by explaining a little bit. First, like we talked about, that we perceive color and how we perceive it, and the idea that no two people perceive color alike. Now, that being said, when we view color in the world, all right, we have this idea of, we think of colors, and especially with color analysis, we think of what purple, what red. It isn't like that, because color in the world is always viewed in combinations. There is a theory based that is a basic thing for everyone, that everyone should know, whatever technique they want to end up using, called color relativity. Color relativity. That means no color stands alone. We always view colors by what they're surrounded by. That's what I call the color surround. For instance, like right now, everyone's looking at gorgeous Jess with her gorgeous auburn hair and her beautiful sort of rusty terracotta, and you're against this sort of green deco background. Okay, we're taking in the whole thing. If I moved you in front of a black lacquered wall with a black piano and a spotlight on you, we would perceive something else. If I moved you in front of if you were on a red couch and you were surrounded by other colors, I would see something else. So we never see a color by itself. So that is why that leads us into the technique that creates what has morphed into what's called color analysis. Now, there are hundreds of color theories. And
There are.
when I first started working with color, after I had what training there was, and yeah, I've been doing this for 4 decades, so I have seen things come and go, and people add things and take them out. And but the first thing I did was I went to the libraries, I went to the bookstores. There was a bookstore downtown, a Barnes and Noble, that was by the Fashion Institute, FIT, and it was devoted to art. So it had architecture and it had fashion and it had all kinds of painting and things, but it had huge section of color. So I just devoured all these things. They're all different theories and they're all relevant to whatever they're talking about. But seasonal color is a very specific thing. Like Munsell is a theory. It's the opposite of seasonal color. It's based on opposition. Pantone is a theory, but it's based on creating colors as they relate first and foremost to paint on the wall. There's tons of theories, and they're all theories in painting. You talk about value of contrast and levels in chroma and things like that. Those have to do with painting. What seasonal color does that I loved, it's the only theory in its original form that connects the person's coloring with the way it's used in the appearance. That is a direct link. Now, they're two different things, but to connect them, you have to have technique. So it gave people a fairly simple palette or beginning to go out and create. Now, the basis of it was, though, not to limit you and put you in a box. The season is not meant to be a box. It's basically a poetic way of describing a family of colors. That's what it is. So there are four seasons, there are four basic palettes. All right, this goes way back. Okay, the first person that discovered this kind of thing in four categories, so to speak, was Max Factor. Okay, way back in like 1917 or 18 or something, because Max Factor created what we call makeup. It was not even called cosmetics until him, but he was working in the movies. He was a chemist. He was working in the movies, and he had to develop makeup for people's coloring that would look natural to them. So he started mixing things, and then he is the person that came up with the four different tones of skin based on what's called the undertones of the skin. And then it moves through a lot of different things until you get to the Bauhaus School. And Johann Eaton, who was a member of the Bauhaus for a while, until he was kicked out because he turned out to be kind of a crazy guy. He was the person that developed what we call the seasons, four basic palettes. Now, these palettes are ranges of colors. They're not meant to be a limited idea of wear this, don't wear this. It's meant to give you a family of colors. So the reason that he chose the seasons was it was evocative of the feeling of the palette. So in the winter palette, you had the cool, clear, vivid colors of the holidays and the winter crisp colors. In the springtime, it's a rebirth, a renaissance, and everything is light and vibrant again. In the summer, we're lazy, hazy, everything, gets like this sun-drenched kind of thing. And in the autumn, everything explodes with one burst of color before we go back into the sleepy time of winter. So that's basically how the four palettes originate. Now, what I love about that is it connects warm versus cool. All right, let's go back to sort of the color theory that created the seasonal color theory. We all know there are three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. All right, in seasonal color, red is the fixed, it's dominant. Blue and yellow are the mutables. So what that means is for every basic color, if you add more blue to it, you cool it down. If you add more yellow to it, you warm it up. So all of the four palettes have a version of the red, yellow, and blue, and then it's a question of how much yellow or how much blue is added. So it's always warm versus cool. That is the basis of seasonal color because it goes back to the origins, which is based on the undertone of the skin. Now, the undertone is a base color. You can't see it when you look at someone, but it's sort of like the genetic link. It creates the colors that we see in the complexion of the hair and the eye. So they're always one. You see, as human beings, this goes back to my philosophy also, which I love. This is why I loved it. We're holistic. We're connected. We're not this disparate elements, whether we're talking about bodies and body parts or whether we're talking about coloring. Hair, skin, and eye are a unit because that's our coloring. We are a painting. I always love to tell people at the beginning, you're a painting and you're a sculpture and you're a masterpiece. You've been created. So it's not my job to create you. It's my job to help you know what's there and give you a palette so you can go out and create these magnificent things on your own. So the warm versus cool idea is seasonal color theory. There is nothing but warm or cool. So I know there's a lot of morphs of seasonal today, and they'll talk about neutrals and things like that. I'm not suggesting people should or shouldn't do that, and I'm not disparaging anybody for doing that. So please know that. But I am trying to tell people or to elucidate what seasonal color theory really is based on. And if you vary from that, you need to understand you're adding things to it. So I don't know whether some people like it and some people don't. I don't think it makes it better. I think it sort of changes the way you approach color, which I think is more limiting. I'll maybe talk about that in a little while. But the basic idea of seasonal color theory is warm or cool. There is no such thing as a mixture. There's no such thing as neutral. There can't be. There are warm neutrals and there are cool neutrals because neutral is relevant to the palette. And remember, the palette is not a limited little number of colors. It's a huge family. So if you are a winter, for example, you have a blue undertone to the skin. That's cool. All right, that's the first step. And well, let's not say winter yet. Let's just say if you're cool. All right. So you work with a blue based palette, which will work in harmony with that. And hair, skin, and eye are all connected, and you get into all those different variations of those colors along the way. But it is blue base, cool colors. All right. If you have a golden undertone to the skin, you're either an autumn or a spring. Those are the warm colors. So everything is going to be based on that. Now, there are versions of every color in all the palettes, with a couple of exceptions that work in terms of wardrobes. But it's, again, not specific shades. We're talking about a range. So that's where we start. All right, so that was the first step in seasonal. Now, then, the beautiful thing that connects it further is because the hair, skin, and eye are connected. And as we look at the person, now we're talking about the person's appearance as a whole. So when we look at the hair, skin, and eye, which is where the colors are most vivid, it's the relationship between the hair, skin, and eye that then become key, which I call the triad. And it has to do with more contrast or more dimension. So with contrasting coloring, you have more of a distinct difference between the hair, skin, and eye, with dimensions that are more multi-tones within the hair, skin, and eye. Now within that, you see that's a broad range. There's very light coloration, there's very dark colorations. You can have vivid contrast, you can have all kinds of contrast, but the idea of contrast means you need clarity in the palette. And the idea of dimension means you need a saturation of color in the palette. So it's the difference between a sharpness, or I would like to say a richness. Now, each palette is going to express that in a different way. A winter's version of cool and contrast. A winter person has high contrast between their hair, skin, and eye. That's what makes a winter. So you will see somebody with relatively dark hair, a light or clearer skin, and a clearer eye. Doesn't mean the complexion has to be pale. It can be black. It's still high contrast, all right? Because the vividness is there. All right, so to enhance that, to work in harmony with that, you work with cool, clear colors, which you can poetically think of as jewel tones, sharp colors, or they can also be icy colors. They can be bright, dark, light. Anybody can wear light colors. Anybody can wear bright colors. Anybody can wear dark colors, and you want to, because when we get later into how you work with color and your appearance, it's the impact you're going to make. It's the situation that you're in. It's the intention that determines how you use the color, whether it's lighter, whether it's brighter, whether it's darker. It isn't pre-assigned to you. That's the thing. You don't pre-assign color. You can't, because it's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle. You cannot do that. So the other side of cool is the dimensional version, which the hair is going to have multi-tones. The skin is going to be more dimension, and the eye is going to be that way too. Now, remember, each palette has its own version. So when you get into that dimensional cool palette, it's sort of a diffused version of the colors. They can be lighter, brighter, deep. They won't quite have the sharpness. That's a summer. Now, a summer's version of deep is different from a winter's version of deep. So we can't just say deep colors across the board. We're getting more specific now. But that's the difference in the cools, all right? You've got the summer versus the winter, clear versus diffused, but all cool. I didn't really go into the warm colors. When you add yellows to the colors, you get hot. So whether the colors are light or bright or dark, they have a richness to them that is their own language. Like just think of the difference between cool and warm. When we think of cool, and you think of that feeling of cool, it's a smoothness. When you think of warm, you think of fire, and it's hot. Now it can be light and bright, or it can be really rich and fiery, but that has to do then with the triad. So we're talking now about the warm seasons, which are autumn and spring. So the autumn person's dimension is going to be very, very rich. You're going to see very vivid multi-tones. And you see, when we're talking hair is dimensional, so it can be very, very subtle. And you really have to have a trained eye as well as the talent to see this. So it's not something that's easy to see yourself. But there is dimension in the hair, and the skin has color to it, and the eye has more of a richness to it. So you work with a fiery hot palette. That is the autumn. Think of the autumn leaves when the leaves turn. That's the heart of the autumn palette. Spring person has a light, bright contrast. So the hair, skin, and eye have more clarity in the three colors. Now, it's not dark and vivid like the winter's contrast, because when you add yellow to the colors, they get lighter and brighter. As they get brighter, they get light bright, not vivid like the cools do. So it's, again, each palette has its own, I don't want to say rules, but structure, right? So the spring person is light and bright, like the springtime flowers and fauna, and the autumn person is rich and fiery, like the autumn trees, or it's the last burst of color before winter. So that's the range of the three colors. Now, I love that, because what that does, and this is why I don't do quite some of the things that have been brought into seasonal color that people do. And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying I don't. Because when we get into actually how colors work in our appearance, it's a different story. This is just a starting point. So to prescribe very specific tones, like you must wear this green or not this green or not this green, and you're this time of winter, and that doesn't have anything to do with the outfit that you're going to actually wear. Because first of all, you'll never find those specificities, excuse me. And also it wouldn't make any difference because by the time you put it in fabric and by the time you put the colors together and by the time you put it into the outfit that you're trying to do something with, it's a whole different story. And this is where I think probably what happens to people when they start doing color, they get really exciting because you love it. And I know what that's like. And you want more, 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 more. But you need to remember, color is just one piece of the jigsaw puzzle. It's not the be all and the end all. It's like the artist that's using it to connect, to create a story. Use
Hmm.
color as a piece of your story dependent on the situation and your intention. And the way you would use red, for example, that's why you can't just give somebody a red if you are in autumn, any hot violet is going to work on you. Sometimes it's going to be brighter, sometimes it's going to be softer. The fabric's going to make a big difference. So you don't want to limit yourself. I mean, first of all, you won't find those clothes to begin with if you're looking for things that specific. But also, it doesn't show. Once you put it in an outfit, it's kind of like a parlor game because it doesn't relate. And this is where makeup comes in too. You see, makeup and hair have their own connections to this, and they're connected to it. But you have to remember that makeup is not clothes. Colors in fabric are different from color in makeup. The family is the same. You don't want to have a warm person in pink makeup. That's like, oh, scratching your fingernails against a chalkboard. Um, but makeup is paint that blends into the skin. So you've already got a color there. It's not like a white wall. That's why you can't really use paint chips to help you for that. Those colors are created as if you're putting them on a white wall. Your skin tone has color. So the makeup has to, first of all, blend in to the skin. Then you've got colors of the eyes, the cheeks, and the lips. They have to go together. They have to be in a family. Otherwise, you have all this disparate kind of jerkiness going on in the features that you want them to blend together because you want them to highlight your face, not the makeup colors. And then they have to connect to the clothes that you're wearing. Because let's say you were a winter. Well, you have pure white in your palette. You also have black in your palette. You also have icy pink and you have scarlet red. One makeup isn't going to go with that just because it's cool and clear. Um, you have to learn to match the intensity of what you're wearing to the intensity of the face. If you're going to work with makeup, you have to do that or it won't blend in. Because again, remember, we're not looking to follow a trend in makeup or anything else. We're looking to do what works for you, what harmonizes with you, what's part of your story. And the same thing in hair, all right? Your hair is always connected to the undertone of the skin. You cannot have warm hair and cool skin. It is genetically impossible. But hair colorists are trained basically in trends. It's a trendy thing and has been for a long time to warm up everybody's hair. But there's nothing more horrible on a winter or a summer than to put red in their hair because it is like having a halo of like, think of the worst, if you're a winter, think of the worst autumn color that you can wear, like maybe a muted olive green. It's like putting a scarf of that around your face because it's a frame for your painting. So if you're cool painting, you want a cool frame. If you're warm painting, you want a warm frame. It's really simple logic. It really is. It's just that we get so nitpicky sometimes, and we get myopic. I call it like color minutia. And it's exciting, and I know why people do it because it's fun to think of that. But you have to remember, the most important thing is understand your color, but then practice how you're putting it into place, how you're actually using it as a tool to tell your story, to put your light out in the world. And that's when we get into what we do with color and how we work with it in clothes. But I guess that's sort of the basic idea of the seasons, the way I work with them, which is the way seasonal color is created. And why I love it is it's the only color theory that really takes into consideration the natural coloring in a holistic way of how all the pieces of us fit together as a unit and connects how we can use it in our appearance in a holistic way to tell the story. So, like those artists that create the story, you're creating your story. And color is like, I always said the first thing people see when you walk in the room is color. The second thing is shape. And we take those in like that unconsciously. But boy, are they powerful and boy, are they important. And boy, are they
Yes,
exciting.
they are. They're so exciting. And I love what you say about the palette being related to the infinite number of colors that you can see in Mother Nature in each
Mhm,
of those seasons.
mhm,
Because that's so true. When you look at the palette of color that you have available to you, if you are one of those seasons, all you have to do is look to the natural world to find all of those infinite colors that you can play with in
mhm,
your season. For an autumn, you may have the really deep, earthy moss green
mhm,
next to a very vibrant red in the trees of the leaves turning.
mhm,
There's this infinite spectrum of all of these different colors, and they all look so different, especially when you compare them next to each other. The red of a spring tulip is
mhm,
completely different from the multidimensional red that you see in the trees in
mhm.
autumn.
Or a
And I
berry, a
think that is
Christmas
such a,
berry. Mhm,
or a Christmas berry, yeah, a holly berry.
mhm.
And or a juicy summer raspberry
Oh, yeah,
or a juicy
exactly.
summer strawberry.
Yeah,
They're all so very different. And I think people can, like you said, when we start to get into the nitty gritty of going from a four season infinite palette into, maybe 12 season or 16
mhm.
season or 23 season, and you become more and more nuanced with the colors. I understand it because people want to understand the nuances of their own coloring and they want to know what looks best on them. But at the end of the day, the more you dig down into nuance,
Mhm.
oftentimes the more you're limiting yourself
Because it's
in
like
the
you can't
colors that
see the
become
forest.
available to
It's
you.
like you can't see the forest for the trees, and see, that's a
Yes.
really important point that you just made. You see, then what happens is it becomes prescriptive, and it activates a different part of your brain, and you start thinking of lists of color. It's the same thing when people have lists of styles and things that they should wear and shouldn't. First of all, that's not how it works. By the time you put it in code, it isn't that way. But also, that makes you start thinking in a left brain mathematical way. And that then limits, it puts a damper on the energy of color. See, color is visceral. That's why I started with that idea of what does it make you feel?
Mm,
That is not what color is. And I'm not saying that there is a place for that. Of course, there has to be structure. But what I love about the idea of the freedom of the four palettes is it puts you in touch with the creative spirit that you have because I give you a palette and I tell you these are your ranges of colors. Don't try to match those colors. Anything that I give them swatches, you need to use fabric swatches. If anything that blends, that looks like it belongs on that card is right, even like the range of greens. Well, you want it to look like that family, but you can tell if you get like a really warm green, it doesn't look like the rest of the colors because we're talking green. Green is a mixture of yellow and blue, so they're going to be crossover colors that in one palette pose one function, and in the other palette, they play another function. So they may seem to be the same color, but it occupies a very different place in the respective palette. But the whole point of it is with anything in style, and color is a piece of the style. It's a piece of your story. You don't want to get prescriptive. You don't want to preconceive. You don't want to prescribe to people and say, this is it and this is not, except to teach them the basic premise and give them a palette so you can go out and create with it. But it stops the creative urge if you do it the other way. And I know people don't understand this, and there are people that will probably want to argue with that. But what I want to say is my purpose is always, and you can do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell anybody ever that they should or shouldn't do something. But my purpose always is to spark the creative source in you as an
yes.
individual. So, even see, here's the problem with, in my opinion, with these extra seasons. They're trying to say it's more specific, but then if you're going to be specific to the person, you'd have to have how many people are on the planet? 6 billion? You'd have to have six
A
billion
lot.
versions, not 12 or 16.
Yeah.
But then that would be terrible because then people would be, first of all, they'd be going crazy trying to find things. But then also that stops, then, there's this great outfit waiting for you in the store that you really need for this interview that you have. But you're not looking at it because it's slightly different purple than the one you were told you should have. That's that isn't what I want to do. And that isn't again, if it's people I think people should do what they want to do. I'm not trying to say you should or shouldn't, but I am trying to explain what I do. So what I tried to do, and I tried to do this in the book, in the Power Style book, um, I wanted to bring people in because okay, so I've seen, you have to remember, I've been doing this for 4 decades, goes back to the initial huge revelation of color in the early 80s. And this has been going on before that. But I've seen these things come and go and come and go and come and go. And people always are trying to get more colors, more colors, more colors. because they think it makes it easier to work with. But what I see is it limits people. And that is not what you want to do. You do not want to limit your possibilities. It's possibilities. And the possibilities in color are endless. Back to what you were saying about nature. This is our primary connection to color. Remember, it's light, the rainbow. All right. The rainbow
Mm,
is 7 colors. Okay. But the truth of it is, those are just the colors that we in the human eye can see. It it is made up of an infinite variety of those colors, and they're all connected. So there is a relationship to all the colors that is so important, and it's so spiritual. And that's the other thing about color. I call it the highway to heaven because it takes you right to your higher vibration. Whatever colors it is, the feeling that it enlists in you comes straight from whatever your idea of heaven is. It really is on vibrational level, color is the highest of the vibrations next to music. Those two just that's why they're so universal. That's why the rainbow is a bridge. In the Bible, the rainbow was a representative of the covenant that God made with Noah after the flood, that he said he would never ever destroy the world again. And in all spiritual practices, there is some connection to the rainbow. It's considered the highest color there are, and those those colors that are almost translucent, they're the highest of the vibrations. But that's why, when we see those colors, like when I see those icy colors in like a gown, like one of those chiffon kind of gowns or something, it's just like
mm.
you feel like heaven. You feel like, oh, that's why angels are
It's
always like
angelic.
white,
Yeah.
That's why people don't people a lot of people criticize Pantone's color of the year. But that cloud dancer is gorgeous. Their creamy, soft white is one of the most magnificent things that people can wear. I mean, but again, some people thought, oh, it's no color. Well, I challenge that. Picture in our winter here in New York, walking in the room in a cashmere pantsuit, like with a gorgeous, like Italian double-breasted blazer and soft flared, hardly pants and head to toe in cream, cashmere silk charmeuse. Oh my God, talk about tropic
Ah,
shopping.
you're speaking my language.
That's not no color. That's like a
Yeah.
heavenly color. It's how it's used. Yeah, I mean, if you're
Yes.
talking about, a paper napkin, I can understand that. But, velvet is a little different. Cashmere is a different.
And that's so much it, right? Is we talked about this a lot in the last episode when we talked about style. So much of it comes down to what you were trying to communicate in
Mhm,
any given situation.
mhm.
And last time we talked, I it got cut out of the last episode because we talked about color, but then we decided we wanted to do a whole nother
Yeah,
color episode because there was just too much to talk
'cause we
about.
talked for 6 hours last time, and we were both,
I
like,
know
on the floor.
we talked for so long. But you talked about, taking inspiration
Mhm,
from different places and
mhm,
finding how you can connect that to your
mhm,
individual palette.
mhm.
And you specifically made reference to a beautiful Caribbean ocean scene.
Uh-huh,
And just because that might be in the spring palette,
mhm.
when you look at it, it doesn't mean that you can't find the equivalents in your
You
palette. So
totally know.
finding your inspiration for what you were trying
Mhm,
to communicate in the look that you're trying to convey. Like if I'm going on vacation
mhm,
and I'm going to wear resort wear and I want to wear these really fun punchy Caribbean
mhm.
colors, there's the equivalent of that in my palette.
Absolutely.
You just have to paint your picture for your
And
situation
open your mind
in the
up.
way that inspires
And
you.
open your mind up to the possibilities
Yes.
of that and don't think of it as such a limited thing. This is why, when people talk about somebody being a light season or something like that, and then they don't have the and then they see the palette and it's like it's limited in its possibilities. That's I don't like that. Also, you see, here's the next thing too. This is where people the this is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. Outfits, creating outfits, using color to
Yes.
create outfits, right? You've got to remember color is the piece of the puzzle. You're using it to create a statement in your appearance. So we're not now, okay, we start with, we got you in the right hair color. You got that at the hairdresser. You got the right makeup. Okay, you know what colors to look for. But now you need an outfit. You need a wardrobe. Well, what do you need? Are you in an office? Do you work in an office? Do you have interviews? Are you someone who like represents your company to the public? Okay, what are you a stay-at-home mom? Or are you a laboratory technician? You could be anything. It doesn't matter. You still have clothes and you're interacting with other people. If you want to capture the power of style and use color, as part of that, which see, it's going out there no matter what. This is what I think I said before. It's energy. You're putting it out there. If you walk out of your house, you're putting it out there. In your house, you're putting it out there. As long as you are breathing and walking on this planet, you are putting energy out there. So you want to put your energy out in a way that is really, first of all, helpful to you, but also then
Mhm.
connected to other people. I feel, that's the beauty of it. And when it's so enriching when you understand the connection that color gives you to other people. But you have to learn how to do it in an outfit. You can't just give somebody their colors and say, good, go buy clothes. Well, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I've seen some of the worst outfits around from people that I'm doing my colors. And it's like, yeah, though, what are you doing? It doesn't look like you look worse than you did before because it's a mess. It's just a mess. It's the same thing. Our eye has to have continuity. As our eye, when we're looking at someone, our eye travels. So we have to get the colors together. Now, a certain part of that is built into your palette in that it is a harmonious palette, but that's not
Mhm.
enough. All right. What's the impact that you want? I think, again, I don't want to get too prescriptive, but you've got to remember that you're creating outfits. Every time you put clothes on, you actually are creating an outfit because that's what people see when they look at you. They don't see this beautiful little square of fabric that somebody put next to your face to tell you you're a winter, not an autumn. They just see you and whatever you're putting out in the world. So a good rule of thumb is if you're creating an outfit with separates, you want what I call the color pull through. When you do that in any outfit, whether it's a dress and something or whether it's separates, the color pull through. So you have to take a color that you're using, at least one, and pull it through so that our eye has something to connect. It's like what I call creating a color chord. Go back to music because the way we work with color combinations is like a visual chord. So you don't want to put a color in that jolts the chord. Like in music, you can have dissonance, you can create that, but that's a created thing. Everything goes together to create that. So you can't have arbitrary things. And that's a problem with style today is that it's a little of this and a little of that. And people think, oh, it's trendy, but it doesn't. If you don't know that that's what all your friends on TikTok are wearing, you have no idea what that person has on that crazy outfit. Um, and I'm not saying everybody has to go back to like the 50s idea of, buying your shoes to match your dress. My sister used to
Yeah.
do that in high school for the dances, and it was kind of fun to see, like, oh, these shoes that went out as, like, white come back as, like, aqua, you know? And but I'm not saying do that, but you wanna have continuity, like pick a color combination, like if you're gonna do red and white, for instance. Well, you can't just put a red top in and white pants and expect it to be something. Pull it through. Pull it through. Red accessories, white touches here and there so that it looks like a conscious idea went into that because that's the beauty. And that's what I want to awaken in people. And if you give, see, like some people think, well, I'm not really an artist. Well, that's why we give you power of colors to work with. Go out and work with them. But just create on your own. Have a reason. Think of the colors, pulling it through, and create something. Just create anything. And it doesn't matter. The beauty of today is flexibility. It's like I said before, the fabric lets us wear different silhouettes than we did before. You can't preconceive details. Go out and create anything that makes you excited, that gives you goosebumps using your palette and understanding your silhouette. Go out and do that and let the chips fall where
Yes.
they may. But then also, when you have specific situations, which every moment of our life is really a situation if you stop and think about what you want out of that situation. I mean, maybe it's just, you don't want to like go pick up the kids at school and you don't want to look like, you rolled out of bed. Maybe you just want to be a happy presence for your kids when you pick them up. Or you got an interview, for a job. You want to really like present something very conscious that you have really worked to create. So you got to think about that. Today it's too much of I'll throw on a top with some jeans. And, if it's a nice top, I'll think I made an outfit. No, it's just a top and jeans. That's all it is. But if you have that top and you have jeans and you have shoes and you have earrings and maybe a bag that you thought of that connect to each other, wow, that could be a really simple, casual, great looking outfit. It doesn't have to be, that's not sloppy. I'm not all for this elevation of the sloppy. or elevation of the ugly. That's a trend, you know? And I'm just not interested in things like that. Part of it is, I see them come and go and come and go and come and go. And it's like, what goes around comes around and who cares? Um, you want, you want things that express your artistry. And I want to, if
Mm,
you've ever read The Artist Within, it's a different frame of experience. It's not so much thinking, certainly not in an analytical way, as it is experiential, experiencing. That was the whole premise for the book, in the games that you play, because we're not objective. So when we do this analytical thing, everybody argues with us all the time and wants to like fault you for this or that. You can't argue with a person's experience. That's their experience. That is unique to you. And that's something you can really write home for. You really can take root in that. And I think, color is the most fun thing to create with when you have a bit of a toolbox. But it's like, it really is like, the little watercolor kits that you would get that were little trays of colors. You just mix them up and do things with them and let your heart lead you. It would be like if I gave you a watercolor kit of your season, the three ranges of color, and you just create with it and see what you could do. That's what you get to do when you're talking about making outfits. And you
mhm.
shouldn't think of it as right or wrong. You should think of it as, does it make me feel inspired or not? Does it activate your heart? See, that's what I like about the Four Seasons. It allows you to connect right to the heart and spread that out. And the color is the direct link. It really is. I,
It is.
I always think, when I think of color, I think of those lifesavers, the 5 colors that were in the lifesavers, which are they take,
Yeah.
because, those are the luscious colors, and they have a flavor, and then that takes me to the Crayola box, and I always had to have the 64 colors. Once my mother got 48, and I said, I said, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And, the fun we had as children, or colored chalk, you see in the city, when they do these open streets days, they put colored chalk out, and the children just go playing with the colors. They're so beautiful,
Mm,
it's so moving, and
it
I
is.
I think, I love when you go back to painting. That's what I wanna say again, everybody, go look up Sister Wendy, it'll change your life. But you do that when you're doing your paintings and your outfits, it's just like, it's so deeply satisfying, because it's
Thank
like
you.
you took fine art, masters that really honed their craft, and you connected that with your artist, your spirit, and you create these magnificent things, and you didn't imitate them. You didn't follow anybody's rules. You had an idea of what works for you. It's so beautiful. It's so moving.
Thank
I
you,
love
David.
I just do, and that's why we love people to dress well, I mean,
Yes.
dress
But,
better, dress better.
on that, I I think that there's a lot of people. I love what you said about, children when they're given their box of 64 crayons,
Mhm,
or they're given their chalk, and they just splash the sidewalk with
mhm,
color, or they just fill the page with color,
mhm.
and they're coloring from their heart.
Exactly.
Yeah, my daughter the other day, her and her little friend, they made this really beautiful giant rainbow jellyfish in our
Oh,
driveway out of
wow.
chalk, and it
A
was just,
talk?
it was so
Oh,
beautiful.
wow.
And that's the way that we should be looking at
Mhm,
the use of our colors. Now, the technique has to be there, like you
yeah,
said. And that's why I think for people who maybe struggle a little bit with understanding how to pair colors together, or
mhm,
how to do color pull through in their
mhm.
outfit, because you can do color pull through and still mess it up because
Yeah,
the colors might not go together. But actually why I love to look to the world of fine art,
mhm,
because when you look at a painting, there may be a bunch of different colors in it,
mhm,
but the way that the masters work those
mhm.
colors in together
That's
is a
right.
way that you can do that in your own
Mhm.
outfits.
That's really
And
right.
even if you want to do, a statement color
Mhm,
in a field of a different color, I like
mhm,
to think of the painting by John William Waterhouse, Circe. You have all of these really dark colors in the background, and she's all swathed in deep grays and blacks, and she's got that beautiful clear alabaster skin. And then you've got this vibrant acid green
mhm,
that she is pouring
mhm.
into the river. And it might be a color that doesn't look like it goes with everything, but in the
Oh, in the
context of
context
the
of that
full
painting,
picture,
it's everything
it
because it
goes with
speaks
everything.
to what the artist was needing to say. That's so true.
Exactly.
Well, that's why
And
go ahead.
I would encourage people to that do struggle with color to look for inspiration in the art world, whatever artist it may be, because everybody has an artist that they connect with, whether
Mhm.
you think you're an art person or not.
Yeah.
Everybody can find an artist out there that you
Mhm.
connect with.
Mhm.
And I would encourage people to look at paintings and the way that color is used in
And
paintings
let me tell you,
and what
Sister Wendy will
inspires
help
you.
that a lot. Sister
Yeah,
Wendy will help
I'm going to
everybody.
look her up.
But that's why I like to say, this is why I tell people in the book where the first games was really going to the movies, going back to the Technicolor. Because
Mm,
when Technicolor was introduced, I mean, you got to remember the movies were a whole, they gave the world a whole new way of viewing everything. It was the dream factory. And when color was introduced, wow. So they brought the world's greatest artists, in terms of designers and makeup and hair together and the magnificent uses of color. When you look at some of those movies, like anything Vincent Minnelli directed in color is going to have that. It gives, and they didn't use like, they, they had a very standard way of using makeup colors and things. They did take it into consideration in Hollywood's way, but the way they put forth joy, it's so joyful to see. Like when you watch Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire dancing, and they're in color, and her dresses, they have all those like ombre versions, and she swirls around, and there's different layers of things inside. It's just the most amazing thing. And these are the greatest artists who came together because they're creating a story. And often it was in pursuit of making the stars image focused. So you will
mm,
see, that's why you will see, it's not that they stuck to the what we call the seasonal palette. But you will see Marilyn Monroe's use of color very different from someone like Ava Gardner's use of color or Katharine Hepburn's the way
Catherine.
they use color. And I'm not even talking about, well, they didn't dress very differently in their lives because the studio sort of controlled their lives, but the way they did that is really something you can learn from because you see,
Hmm.
we've gotten so sloppy. I mean, we just are sloppy, sloppy, sloppy in the way we work with things. And it doesn't need to be that way, and it doesn't take any more energy to dress well than it does to dress sloppy if you have the right clothes in your closet. I always tell people it really boils down then to shopping. You have to learn how to shop. But that's where your colors really help you. When you go shopping, the first thing you should do, if you have your palette, eliminate, go to your size, eliminate the colors that are not right for you. That takes care of a lot of stuff. But you see, if you're doing one of these extended seasons and you've got like only one version of this bright green that you can look for, you're never going to find it. But that again, the color of green that's in the winter palette you were told to wear is right next to it. And by the time you put it in that dress, it's the same thing. It's not any different because it's in fabric. It's got texture. It's going to have movement and it's going to be put together in an outfit. So that's why I don't want you to again, I want to say this again. I don't want people to think I'm disrespecting their way of doing anything, but I want to introduce this idea that there is a different approach that is not so analytical. See, we are deluged with the algorithm today, and that is social media. It is all about imitation, 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 imitation. You buy one thing, they show you a million versions of that. Or it's all about, oh, I saw this outfit on so and so, and so I'm wearing it. That's what teenagers do, and that's right for them. But when you get a little older and you have a life, that has become more mature in your choices, you want to step out on your own and you want to put that energy out in the world. And, you can do that very easily. That's the beauty of something like color analysis or any working in terms of style, as long as it's not dictating results. Anytime you try to go for a result, it's never going to work because it means you put a lid on your creativity. And that's the most important thing, at least for me. And that's what I want to bring out in the clients, because there's no one in the earth that's ever been you, nor will there ever be. Even if you come back in reincarnation, you're going to be a different person with different goals and you're going to be here for a different reason. So you have been blessed with this uniqueness. And your coloring is one of the most vivid things about you, whether it's a
Yes.
soft or vivid or whatever someone wants to call it. See, I don't look at people with that preconceived idea. And like, I don't say, oh, you're soft, so you're summer. I just look at that person and I say, oh, let me look at your beautiful skin. Let me look at this hair, your eyes. And then I like talk to them about what is there. And I mean, I know when I see someone what they are, but I'm not going to start like that. I want them to understand. I want them to feel their own beauty. I want them to
Mm,
start by feeling how special they are. Like, let's look at your skin. Let's look at how beautiful it is. Like, your skin is more, like, I would say to you, oh, your skin is so beautiful. It's like this pale golden tone. It's like a pale peach, but it's so alabastery, and you've got these gorgeous tones in your hair. And I would want you to see that. I've tried to like rework the vision of the person so they can
right.
see themselves through loving eyes. And then we start talking about, well, that's this color and this color and this color. And so that makes you this and this and this. So you want to do this. And now look, this is how I use the drapes. See, I don't use drapes to determine anyone's season. I think that's a very tricky thing to do because it is so subjective. You will get so many different versions and even train people. You go into a class of where they're teaching color analysis and you'll see the different responses people have because it's so subjective. I'm here
Yes.
to illustrate once I've introduced what they are, to introduce the possibilities to the person. I think that's very important because you see, I don't like this idea. Remember that drapes, that's just a little square of fabric. So, I can make anybody look like anything if I put them in front of a camera and put lights on them and do makeup and things like that. That's what they do today with celebrities. That's why it doesn't do one bit of good to look at celebrities and say, what is their season? Because well, what
Mm,
they're coloring. They're not actually who they are. But a little fabric is not how you walk around in the world. It's to illustrate things that come out in the hair. But the old way of doing it was things like shadows and see that that sort of gets left behind when you get more advanced because there are lots of reasons that shadows are created next to the face, and I could pull out a lot of colors from a person's so-called palette, and they'd see a lot of shadows because they're just not colors that are like that. And that's why there's no such thing as your best color. It's not because it depends on how you use it. I mean, it may be in a little square of fabric, a rush looks better than, an olive green, but that's not true in clothes at all. So it depends on what you're doing with it. So I want people to understand it's their beauty and their uniqueness. That's the key. That's the core of who you are. And that's like, oh,
And
wow.
and then
That's the point.
yes, and then harmonizing with what already
That's
exists
it.
there
That's harmony.
to have those endless possibilities. I love what you said about, oh, a rust in a little square of fabric may be your best color, may look better on you than an olive green, but you're not going to throw away that olive green because think of all the beautiful possibilities that you have to create a look with that olive green.
Yeah.
I think of, maybe you wear this really long, beautiful, statuesque olive green satin evening gown
Gorgeous.
and you're going to look like an earth goddess come to life,
Exactly. That's
right?
a little different.
You
Yeah.
want those possibilities to, and it goes back to what you said about situation. There's lots of different color systems out there. I've been draped in a lot of them,
Yeah.
and I've been given a lot of different
Yeah.
results. And I know we talked last time about systems that have psychological aspects with colors, and you should really only wear this color in that situation, or in this situation, that situation. And it's so limiting. And color does have a psychological effect, right? The way that somebody's going to interpret a red is very different than how somebody's going to interpret a black or a deep espresso.
It depends on
But
what it is, though. Like
it does.
a
It
red
depends on what
English
it is.
sweater
True.
is very different from a red sequin cocktail dress. It should always be the
Ex-
individual. See, that's the thing. I know that
Yes.
like people like to assign emotional characteristics to colors. That's like preconceived. You're an individual. What? And first of all, even in, excuse me, even in a general way, what's exciting on you is not exciting on somebody else who might even have your same coloring because they're a whole different person. But also, it's always specific to you as an individual and your
Yes.
dreams and what you want in your situation. So there's no such thing as I mean, it is true. I will say one thing. If you're going to do a presentation, it's like, especially on camera, a brighter color is going to have more impact than a muted color. And I don't really like that term muted anyway, because when you think of muting someone, you don't want to mute someone's light. There's a lot of different versions of softer tones that you can use that aren't muted. I want the energy to go out, not be dampened. But the whole idea of uh, there are colors, it is more dynamic a lot of times because you're seeing only a little bit on camera to do a more intense color. Like one of the mistakes I think a lot of times women make on the red carpet is they love to wear sort of skin tone colors because they look so beautiful in person. And so you're
Mm,
looking at a merchant ivory film, they're gorgeous. But when you're walking on a red carpet, you don't have that context. So, the person who's there, like in her, vehicle beaded herbal green, is going to look a lot more exciting than the person who's in, pale blush. And yet, that pale blush in person could be just the most exciting thing ever. So there are certain situations, but not across. It's like nobody. You shouldn't say like, "Oh, everybody should wear red and it's wear red and it's more dynamic." No, but you're in summer and you're doing a presentation. I probably wouldn't wear a pastel or like a heathery mauve or something like that. I'd be more apt to put you in like a raspberry or a vivid orchid or a richer version, and I'd be more apt to think of something like that, but still it's specific to the individual. See,
yes.
anytime you preconceive a result, you are categorizing people, and that activates a different part of your brain. That's mathematical, that's analytical, that's the algorithm. And that's all fine and dandy, for like getting a lot of likes or all that kind of stuff. And we have a lot of use for it. Certainly, I'm not being detrimental to that. But this isn't how you put your light into the world. You put your light into the world from you, from inside. And I think discovering your coloring, if you don't, not limiting it, not the shades that you wear, but the range of your coloring, I think that's magnificent because who wouldn't want to be fiery autumn? See, what I tried to do to embrace everyone was just don't eliminate the heart of the floor palette. And
Yes.
that's what I did in the book. I took these color explosions, like as if we took the heart of your palette and we just exploded it through the heavens, and you would see all these different variations. And I tried to say, if you're in autumn, don't lose the fire. If you're a winter, never lose the jewel. If you're a spring, always remember the vibrancy. If you're a summer, remember that it's lush. If you always remember those things, that helps reorient you. See, I'm really talking about changing your mindset. I'm really not
Mm,
talking about do this color, don't do that color. I'm talking about viewing yourself from a different place. Love based beauty, love based color. Color is love. What is it's just is, it's like it just is.
it is. It is. So in the book, talking about the self-love, um, obviously when you see clients in person, it's so clear to you when you see somebody what their color season
It is
is.
at this
And in
point.
the
I
book,
mean, it
it's
was
more of
5
a
years ago, but it is at this
oh
point. Yeah.
yeah. And in the book, it's more of a DIY approach, right?
Yeah,
Throughout the
absolutely.
entirety of the book.
Yep.
And I do think there are a lot of people who struggle to look at themselves objectively. I mean, nobody can look at themselves truly objectively. And so, what advice would you have for people who really do struggle to see their coloring and figure out what their season is?
Well, it's a process. Okay, you've got to understand that you're not gonna hold different colors next to your face and determine your season. And you're not gonna get it by looking at people online, and you're certainly not gonna get it by looking at celebrities and thinking you look like them. You don't look First of all, you don't want to look like any celebrities. You want to be the celebrity. And that's why with the
Yes.
game, you gotta go through the games because they change your mindset. So you start to view. First of all, you have to get over your prejudices. Like a lot of people will just say, "Well, I know I'm better on because I hate olive green and mighty mustard and blah 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 blah." Blah." Okay, you've got to find out what those are so you don't trip up by those. Step by step by step. I introduce you to the beauty of color through like the Technicolor movies, learning about your yuck, learning those things before you get to the little things like the drapes and things like that. Like in the book, color came way, way, way like maybe two-thirds after of the book because I really wanted people to have already a sense of they have a different place to go to because we got to activate that place. That's why I say it's like the artist's way. You do your morning pages. You've got to activate that place to know to to know to go there. So I hope that you already have that activated. It's a process of elimination. It's like you have to be a detective. First of all, you can begin to see the colors next to the face. It will help you somewhat. And then, you look at all those nuances. I give you examples. I gave lists of different variations of coloring. You can sort of see what you like. You have to do a little of this, a little of that. It's like when you have a necklace, a chain that's all tangled up, and you have to do a little this way and a little this way, a little this way, a little this way. There's a step by step by step. It's like it's elucidated in the book to do it that way. And then at the very end, it gives you like very different variations of this seasons. Like back to that idea of 12, 12. I think sometimes people get confused because I've been doing what some people think of as 12 way before this ever even happened that people decided to do a 12 season approach, but not for the same reason. Because, there's a wide range of colorings within each of the four seasons. Like you can be a summer and be a pale, pale, pale ash blonde. You can also be what some people think of as a brunette. It's really more of what you used to call a brownet, but it is dark and everything in between. What you can't be is a redhead. Okay, so I give those. I started to say I have a version, a word for each of the different individuations within the seasons, but it's different because I'm not trying to describe the palette. I'm trying to describe the type of the coloring within the season. So if you're a
Mm,
soft winter, it doesn't mean you wear softer colors or softer winter colors. It means that, your hair's a little bit of the lighter dark brown, like a medium dark brown rather than the dark brunette. If you're a vivid winter, it's going to be the darkest of the darks, and the skin is going to be deeper. If you're a softer winter, it's going to have a lighter eye. If you're a bright winter, it's going to be in between those. It's going to be dark hair and light skin, but the eye color could be different. Um, so I give those and always have to help people understand that why if someone comes in and she's like, uh, maybe she's got that medium, ashy brown hair, and she has like sort of a blue gray eye, and her skin has a lot of color. Why is she a winter when someone like Angelica Houston is a winter? That didn't make any sense. Well, because you're a softer winter. That's why. But the palette is the same. It's not. I'm not going to give somebody a different palette because the range of colors is the range of colors. And I'm not saying
mm,
she should never wear that she doesn't wear the darker colors. She can wear black. It depends on what she's doing with it. Um, because it's always individual. So I give those lists in the book so you can see the variety, and there's a huge variety of skin tones. You have to determine, like we're talking about the skin, I'll range like, let's see if I can remember. I'll say like summer skin tone maybe could be a porcelain. It's cool, but it's going to be porcelain. Uh, it's going to be like a light cool beige, which a lot of people call neutral, but really isn't neutral. It's really cool because there's no such thing. There's neutral in makeup, but it's not really neutral. It really does have more yellow or blue added to it. It has to because it's the base. Um, but it doesn't look it, You might have that, or you might have like a cocoa skin tone or an almond skin tone. And then you can sort of figure that out, and you can look at foundation colors sometimes, step by step by step. It's not easy for some people to do. I mean, it is like if you are a natural redhead, you can start by eliminating winter and summer, and there is no such thing as a natural redhead that is cool. It cannot happen in nature. It does not happen. That doesn't mean it can't get a reddish cast. That's a different story. Hair oxidizes. Red is a lighter color than brown, so your hair is going to go through a red stage. That happens to people a lot. And sometimes, if you've grown your hair long, it can have a really red cast, and you can even think of yourself as having reddish hair. You look at the base of the hair color, all those things are listed. So you have to compare to them. That's when you have to do it. And it's not an easy process and it's not a fast process. And then you go out and you can try certain things and experiment with certain things after you've learned some of these things. But it's a little of this, a little of that, and a little of that. And it's a step by step approach. It is. But I will say it's not an easy thing and you shouldn't expect it to be, and don't get discouraged if you want to do it yourself. That's helpful because, the way colors are done today, this is a sad thing, but you can go out, you can have 10 professional color analysis by people that are trained and certified, whatever that means. I mean, and that can be great. I'm not despairing that. Um, they can all be from the same place. You can get 10 different analysis. because it's
It's true.
subjective. That's in the book. I talk about embracing your subjectivity. If you stop thinking you're supposed to be objective, that's the first step. Then you go to intelligent subjectivity, which is where we learn all these techniques. That's what I did in the book. That's what we talk about. And then you reach that stage where it feels right. And that's when you know it's right. Because like, look, you know where you are right now in this beautiful autumn palette. That's you. You know them. They can tell you whatever they want to. You know this is you. And sometimes it's semantic. Somebody could give you these colors and call you something else. And some people use things that aren't seasons. When I started doing this, when Color Me Beautiful really revolutionized everything, I was in the very beginning of it. There were a couple of other approaches to color analysis, and they had different names. One of them had names like numerical names, group number one, group number two, something like that. They had different ideas, and then people started doing gimmicky and they started, using other things. Um, so sometimes semantics, but if you go if you are coming from the right place and you're looking what reaches you,
Hmm.
then step by step, you're going to get to that point where you know it's right. That's what I'm trying to lead people to, and you cannot do it by preconceiving. You can't do it in an intellectual way. You can't check off lists. You have to go inside and you have to start in your heart. And it takes time to re to remember those things because we all start with that. But we've just learned so much to look at life the other way that we forget that we have that, and everybody has that. And
Yes.
it's not a question of being more talented, and so you have to have a list. No, we just have to help you reactivate the other part of you that's there. But you're a human being. You have a heart.
Well, and it takes time and it takes practice and it takes trial and error. I mean, I'm at a place where I'm very familiar with which colors I work for me, but also which colors bring me joy and the palettes that I want to create and communicate with. And I've been draped in multiple systems and been multiple seasons. And at the end of the day, I know that the fiery autumn colors work for me,
Mhm.
right? That's what I know works for me in practice. But it's a journey to get there, and it's a journey to get to a place where it becomes intuitive
Mhm.
and not work. And people have to not be afraid to do the work
Because
to make
the
it
because
happen.
the journey is the point. It is finding the joy in the
Exactly.
journey. Let's say that
Hmm.
again. It's finding the joy in the journey. That's what I
It's
want to
finding the
do.
joy in the
And
journey.
it's the best. It's real why we're here.
Yes.
The truth of it is, if we get to that point where we've checked off all the boxes, it's time to fly the coop, go off to the next plane because we've done what we came
Yes.
here to do. It's the journey that's the point. And then, if you don't approach it that way, oh gosh, you have cheated yourself out of the magic of life. And it's color is
Agreed.
magic. It's the magic of color. That's the
It
most
is.
important thing to say to people. It's the magic of
Hmm.
color. Going
It's
back
the
to what
magic of
you
color.
said, what do you feel? I feel magic, and inspiration, and that's what you're talking about with art. Wherever you get your inspiration, that go there first. Go there first because that turns on the switch in that area that we're trying to get to. And once that switch is on, then you have a chance. But if we go to the other part of the brain that ignores that or diminishes that or poo-poos that, then we're getting smaller is what we're really doing. I want you to get
Yes.
larger possibilities.
So, what advice would you give to people who really struggle with color? Because, like you said, there are a lot of people who have kind of been in that world of always needing a list or always needing a mathematical approach to things, and they need that creative center reactivated. So, like I had said, I think people can really benefit from fine art from that standpoint. But what advice would you give to people to help them reactivate that creative center within them?
Well, I think starting by looking at some of those movies is a good thing because it's very hard. If you look at something like Gigi, and the story is ridiculous, of course it is, but it always was. It was meant to be. But the beauty that you see on the screen sometimes, Technicolor is an amazing thing. Look at nature. I think go to the park in the springtime, or go to a botanical
Mm.
garden, or go to flowers. Oh, flowers. That's my answer. I
Ah, yes, I love flowers.
all you have to do is go to a garden And if you don't have a garden, go to a florist and just, it, spring for a rose, a single rose, a couple of bucks. But look at those beautiful flowers that are there. I mean, oh, I love roses. I have a thing for roses. My mother bred roses, and she created the most beautiful roses I've ever seen. All different colors. She made colors by, when you clip them together and do all that kind of thing. I look at a rose and I see the heavens, I see the universe. You look at that flower, the way it's created, and the colors. The colors, like in New York, we have these things, they call them Korean markets. They're really delis, and they all have flowers today. It's such an abundance of beauty. And, I think of the flower market in Paris, people talk about it, and I haven't been there to see that. But when you see the abundance that is in nature. My grandmother had a beautiful garden. She was like president of her garden club, and that was a very important thing for her. She had all these different flowers, the rose, the colors that are there, that are in nature. You just can't imagine. I mean, if you can't get goosebumps from looking at like a huge range of flowers, then I don't know. Then I think go buy a pack of lifesavers, and just look at those colors and suck on each one and get the beauty of that color in
Yeah.
your mouth. Taste the color, you know, or
Yes.
so many things like that. But flowers, that's a good one.
Yeah, flowers are good. And it's really, like you said, what sparks that joy in your
Yeah,
heart. And
whatever.
I like to look at it as every single day when you're getting dressed, you have a blank canvas with which you can paint a picture for the day.
Mhm,
And what is the picture that you want to create for the
mhm,
day? And what colors in your palette are you going to use
mhm,
to create this beautiful masterpiece that's
mhm.
going to carry you
Yep.
throughout the day, throughout your situation?
That's so important. And
Um,
the key is getting it in your closet. If it's not in your closet,
yeah,
it can't
it's
be in
true.
your life. That's really important. And people think like, oh, I'm not going to shop. I'm not going to spend the money. Da, 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 da. So you got to spend the money to get these things correct. And it is an investment. But you invest in everything else. Invest in
Hmm.
yourself. Because when you open the door to your closet and it is all your outfits, there is nothing like it. First of all, the first thing you see is the beauty of the color. Then you've got outfits for all the situations and they're always there. Doesn't take a lot of clothes. You have less clothes when you do it right. But you have those things. It's like, okay, you put on the outfit. Doesn't take any, it's not any harder to put in a great outfit than it is a bad one if you have it in your closet. But that's the main thing, getting it in your closet. But again, if you go back to, if you, a big part of this is self worth, reactivating your self worth. See, what I
Mm,
really believe is if I can get you to go back into that place where I get you to see some of your beauty, then you're in the self-worth lane. And that's like an energy lane that we all have that has been usually dampened, that, we have a lot of judgment about often. And that's what we need to nourish. And, it takes longer for some people than others, but it's really, you're worth having the most beautiful life filled with the most glorious colors, whatever they are to you. So I would ask you, flowers to me, art to you, lifesavers, a good one. I would have to ask that person, well, let's stop and think for a moment. What does color, where in your life have you been excited by color? We go back and figure that out. And it's probably a different answer for everybody. Take the time to do that. Take the
mm.
time to nurture yourself, to love yourself, because the first thing is self love, self acceptance. Then you can celebrate that and then you put it out into the world. It's a natural, organic flow. It happens. But it is what we're really talking about. Find the joy, the excitement, what gave you goosebumps. And if you have a hard time right now, go back to whatever did. Everybody has something in their life. Maybe it was sherbet. I used to love anything lime. Lime sherbet would make me crazy. Um, you'll find it.
Yes, yes. So, is there any parting words that you would like to give the listeners in relation to color? Anything that you didn't touch on that you just feel needs to be said about color?
Color is love. Love yourself. Connect love of color to love of self. And remember what you're giving the world when you put beauty out there. And color is beauty. And beauty comes from individuality. And beauty is God, whatever your idea of God, the gift of the universe to us. So what goes around comes around, put it out. Love yourself and be kind to each other. Right now, I think we need
Yes,
that.
right now.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We need that.
color reaches across all ideologies, all gaps. It's a bridge. Color is a
Mm.
bridge. And the rainbow bridge, that's how we connect to heaven. So that's it.
Ah, I love that. I love that. Yes. Bring your joy and your kindness and your love into the world through your use of color. What a beautiful thing.
It's
So thank
automatic.
you.
If you do it, it
It
works.
is. Yes, yes, absolutely. So thank you so
Oh,
much
you're
again for
so
joining us,
welcome.
David.
It's such a
I always
pleasure.
appreciate talking to you. You're
Oh,
so wonderful.
that's
And
right.
for the listeners who have not yet read The Power of Style, make sure that you pick up a copy of David's book because it really is a paradigm shift. It's a beautiful journey, and the power of style and the power of color is in finding the joy in the journey,
Thank you
like
so
David said.
much. Thank
So,
you, Jess.
yeah,
It's fabulous to you. Mwah. And to everyone,
I know.
mwah.
Much love to everybody. Thank you so much, David.